Yes, hi everyone. Thank you for coming for today's TED Talk. My name is Zoe Boozer and I'll be presenting today. So a quick question for the audience before we get started here. Does anyone ever skip a meal to continue work? Or they work late into the night and they forget to eat lunch or even dinner? Yes, okay, I see many hands. Now, do you guys ever feel like that really impairs your work ethic or your ability to get things done? Yes, no, okay. Well, today's presentation is actually going to be directly related with that. So today we're going to be talking about the effects of food deprivation on cognitive function, specifically concentration and perseverance. So originally what prompted this research was the glucostatic theory, which was formed in the 1940s and the 1950s. And so essentially the brain regulates food intake. It's to maintain this blood glucose set point within your body. And when this set point drops, that's how your body knows that you are hungry. And so once you fulfill that hunger, your blood glucose levels will rise back to that set point and you'll feel full. So the earliest investigation of food deprivation effects found that long-term deprivation, which is 36 or more hours, was associated with sluggishness, depression, irritability, reduced heart rate, as well as the inability to concentrate. Now, another study was found that fasting for several days produced muscular deprivation, irritability, and depression as well. So those have some correlation, so therefore you would think, oh, well then in that case, maybe I should be eating more regularly. But there's also been other issues when it comes to this research, as well as cases and experiments that have proven these wrong. So some issues with studying this topic is that much of the research already done has only focused on the two very ends of the spectrum, which is either you're only skipping one meal or you're essentially starving yourself. So then our findings have been contradictory. So a study found that skipping breakfast impairs certain aspects of cognition, which we all hear because we all preach to our kids that you need to eat breakfast because breakfast is an important meal of the day. But then we have other research that found that food deprivation ranging from missing one meal to not eating in a 24-hour period doesn't significantly impair cognition. And on top of that, not all of groups and all cognitive aspects have been studied. And in a way, it's good because it leaves room for further research, so we can come in and do more research on that, but also it doesn't provide us with the most accurate research now. But this is why we are talking about our experiment today. So some current standings on food deprivation and its correlation with cognitive abilities. So most current results indicate that cognitive function is not affected significantly by short-term fasting. But however, no study has tested perseverance like we are. And the key to being able to really crack this code and understand whether or not food deprivation is a factor within cognitive abilities is to test as many aspects of cognition as possible within these studies. So then the hypothesis for this study was that the longer the time of food deprivation, the more concentration and perseverance will be impaired. And then a bit about our method. So for our participants, there were 51 graduate students. They were volunteer, and the mean GPA within this group was 3.19. Excluded any potential participants if they were dieting, menstruating, if they were taking any serious medication, they struggled or were currently struggling with
Here's what I found.
an eating disorder, or if they were addicted to nicotine or caffeine. So then we move on to the materials that we used in order to measure these two cognitive abilities. So for concentration, we measured speed and accuracy, and so we used this online number matching test, which had 25 rows of numbers, and there were 26 numbers in each row. And so the participant was required to find pairs of numbers and the lines that added up to 10. And so there was 6 minutes on the clock, and then their score was taken out of an overall total of 120 and calculated into a percentage. And then for perseverance, we measured the number of times spent on the task. And it was a puzzle, so there were 5 octagons, and they were to be stacked into the shape of a bunny. So however, 3 of the 5 octagons were slightly misshapen, therefore making the task to stack them to create the silhouette of a bunny unattainable. So then we have our procedure. So of course we got informed consent, and from the form that they filled out there was a ID number as well as the request for their GPAs. So then we use a matched triplets design based on those GPAs that we had received earlier when we received their informed consent, and we use those to control individual differences in cognitive ability when we created those groups. So then each condition group had a specific time for the tasks that they were going to be doing. For the perseverance tasks, all of the participants were told that they would have an unlimited amount of time to finish the task, and that if they had finished it or if they had given up, they were to not tell any other participants. And then after all the testing was done, they were given a demographics questionnaire, and then they were debriefed and dismissed after all the tests. So then here are the results. So then for the concentration task, our results are up here. So the average score was 77.78, which is actually very good considering a good score would be an average of 50 or higher. A one-way analysis of variance, also known as ANOVA, showed no significant effect of deprivation condition on concentration. So as you can see, between the no deprivation and 12-hour deprivation, they had the same scores at an 80% on this test. Meanwhile, the 24-hour deprivation only had about a 73. So honestly, there wasn't much of a difference in this cognitive ability. Then we get to perseverance, and the results were actually kind of shocking. So the average amount of time that was spent on the rabbit silhouette puzzle was 24 minutes. We did, however, cut off participants after 40 minutes just to keep the testing time, really easily measurable. So then in another one-way ANOVA, it indicated a significant effect of deprivation condition on perseverance time of the 12-hour deprivation group. As you can see, the no deprivation and 24-hour deprivation groups were fairly high. They spent anywhere from 26 to 29 minutes. However, the 12-hour deprivation group only spent 18 minutes. So as you can see from the 12-hour deprivation group, they did struggle a little bit, and their cognitive ability of perseverance was affected. So some conclusions that we can pull from this experiment was that food deprivation overall had no significant effect on concentration scores. However, it did have some effect on perseverance scores, considering that we saw that the participants in the 12-hour deprivation group spent significantly less time on the perseverance task than those in the other two groups. And this suggests that short-term deprivation may affect some aspects of cognition and not others. So then looking back at this topic as a whole and kind of comparing it to what already stands, what we have learned, and moving forward with it. So findings in this study are consistent with a past study that was done, and that study found that short-term deprivation didn't affect some aspects of cognition, and like we saw here, there was overall no significant effects in short-term food deprivation with concentration abilities. But together, these findings suggest that concentration is not significantly impaired in short-term deprivation. But then we have findings on the perseverance that aren't as easily explained, like our 12-hour versus our 24-hour results. So why did the 12-hour group spend less time than the 24-hour group? So here we are thinking that because the 24-hour group had already pushed through not being able to eat for 24 hours, they were already kind of on overdrive and thinking, okay, I'm going to continue and push through this task. Then we have other aspects of cognition. They may be affected by short-term food deprivation, although we have yet to study those. So this is really important, which can help continue research within this field. And on top of that, the time of day in which tests took place, both in this experiment as well as past ones, may have influenced the results. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. Well, thank you all for coming to my TED Talk. Have a great day.